Throughout the time of the Roman Empire, the relationship between the rulers of Rome and Christianity varied greatly, from originally being tolerant under the rule of Emperor Augustus to widespread Christian persecution under the reign of Nero, and eventual acceptance centuries later under the rule of Constantine and others. Today we're going to be looking at this changing treatment through the lens of both a humanist and a social scientist. The first object that we have here is a coin of Augustus. This is currently in the British Museum. It was printed between likely 27 BCE and 1480. It's a standard denarius of the Roman Empire, displaying Emperor Caesar Augustus on the front and a six-pointed star on a crescent moon on the back. This helps us show and understand how religion wasn't necessarily binary at this time in the Roman Empire, because the six-pointed star is a really common symbol in both Judaism and Christianity, and it's interesting that this was on an official denarius. And while polytheism may have been the main religion of Rome at this time, there were still people in the empire with different beliefs, and at this time, Emperor Augustus was very tolerant of these minority groups, such as the Christians, the Jews, and he was seeking their approval by treating them as equals. Now, second, we have a statue of Nero. If you know anything about Emperor Nero, he was kind of the exact opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to religious tolerance, when you compare him to, say, Emperor Augustus. When the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD happened, he blamed it on the Christians, which was at the time kind of a newly emerging sect of Christianity. This led to really, really bad widespread persecution of the Christians throughout the empire, including, crucifixion and even the feeding of Christians to lions during gladiatorial games, which is, not very tolerant of him, some may say. So this statue was created sometime during the 1st century AD, and it shows an idealized version of Nero because, he's an emperor, so he wants to look cool and be like, yo, I'm like Alexander. But he had a pretty short-lived reign, and I think it's clear to see how some people may not have liked him. Now third, we're going to go over 250 years later, and Christianity had spread really rapidly throughout this time and was becoming one of the main religions, if not the main religion, in the Roman Empire. Now, what we see here is the Edict of Milan, published in 313 AD by Emperor Constantine. It aimed to end the persecution of Christians in the empire through kind of a series of reforms. It both formally protected Christians' rights to worship, while at the same time giving them kind of a form of reparations in a way by restoring their places of worship and commanding that these places of worship be given back to the Christians. Now, 67 years later, we have the Edict of Thessalonica, which kind of goes hand in hand with the Edict of Milan. It is almost a continuation of the progress that was set forth in the Edict of Milan. The Edict of Thessalonica, it was issued in 380 AD by Emperor Theodosius. It recognized Catholicism as the official and only religion of the Roman Empire. This was really the final step in the gradual transition of the Roman Empire to a Christian state that had been kind of almost inevitable since the rule of Constantine, since he ended the persecution of Christians and really recognized it as a religion. But it could be argued that this was really inevitable since even further before. Now, when we look at all of this evidence together and how Rome's treatment of Christians changed over time, it tells us both a lot from social scientists and humanist perspectives. From a humanist perspective, it's interesting to see how Christianity developed over time as this kind of big social movement, and it almost became an inevitability. I mean, the rulers did matter in legitimizing Christianity, but they weren't the reason that Christianity spread. Christianity was spreading anyways, and this just kind of shows us how social movements can build up through time. Once the movement's grown enough, either rulers will embrace it or they won't be thought of well as rulers. And then looking at it from a social scientist perspective, it's kind of interesting to see how different rulers' approaches to Christianity led to different outcomes for their regimes. Nero, who was pretty infamous for his cruelty, he ruled about just over a decade or so, and it was kind of a reign that was not known for peace, a lot of strife in the empire during that time. Whereas Augustus, Christianity was new during the reign of Augustus, but he treated them with tolerance. And he's really one of the men who really helped push the empire further forward. And he's seen as one of the greatest, if not the greatest emperor by a lot of people. This kind of shows how the outcome of a ruler's reign often hinges on their tolerance towards the people in their society. And a ruler only really has full control over the empire when they have the full trust and faith of its citizens. That's all I've got. Thank you.